here with MaritimeGardening.com, and at long last I'm going to do a video on how I make fermented pickles. I've been making them for a week now because my pickles are ready. This is kind of what they look like when they're done. This sort of cloudy look, right? So these have been going for about 4 days. I like to give them 6 to 7 days. Just that's the way. You can take them out as early as 4 days. They just get stronger and stronger. There's more. The solution gets more acidic over time, so they got a more acidic taste. And I guess I like 7 days worth of that. And you make them this time of year. So just before I get started, I'm using. This kit was sent to me by Mason Tops. They're offering a 10% discount for all my viewers. The discount code is Maritime10, so all uppercase Maritime and then the number 10. The details are in the description box. It comes. I did a video where I did an unboxing of this. I'm not going to do that here, but that's the kit I use here, and it's got these sort of valves at the top to let the gas out. So I'm going to get to work here, and I'm going to explain, as I'm working, I'm going to explain lacto-fermentation. So all your pickles, you gotta clean them. You harvest the pickles and then you soak them in water for a few hours, or these actually soaked overnight because I couldn't get around to it yesterday. And you want to get the little prickles off of them. I mean, maybe you can leave them on and maybe they just fall off in the solution. I'm not quite sure. If someone actually has done it that way and that works, please let me know. I just scrub them off gently with a sponge and it seems to be fine. And you want to take the ends off, right? The two ends. Right? Take off each end. Everything I've read about this says they'll be crispier and they'll just be better if you do that. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's the case. So while I'm processing these, let's just talk about lacto-fermentation. I should have another bowl to put these in. Something clean. Here. So lacto-fermentation occurs in a saline solution when you've got, I'm getting everything backwards here, when you've got some sort of living thing like this. It's a bacteria that's present in just about any plant life, the bacteria that does the work. And when you put that bacteria in an anaerobic environment, that is to say an environment that has no oxygen, that bacteria is the happiest bacteria in the world. I'm getting this backwards over and over again. And I'm usually going left to right, I don't usually go front to back. So what will happen is that bacteria will start to multiply and go to work on the vegetable matter. And through that process, it will excrete gases, and it'll turn the solution to an acidic solution. So, and that's why your pickles become, that nice vinegary type thing. So as opposed to the way I was taught to pickle, where you put everything in vinegar, this one here you just put everything in with salt water, and the bacteria turn that water into vinegar. And there's also the argument that there's all kinds of health benefits that go along with it, that they becomes probiotic in much the same way you'd attribute to a yogurt or kombucha or all these different sorts of things. That there's all these reported health benefits. I can't speak to the science of that, but certainly there's many testimonials. All right, so we're done. Oh, darn it. Why do I keep throwing those in there? All right, so that's the idea. Now, after you've done this, you want to set aside a couple big ones. And I'll show you why later, but it's important. The two bigger, the ideal size for pickling, in my opinion, is one that's about the width of a hand. My hand, I got a big hand, but I'd say that's maybe 4 to 5 inches, right? Once they start getting big like this, they're not as ideal. So you got to basically, if you're growing as many pickles as I am, you got to pick them every day. So anyway, you put aside a couple big ones, and I'll show you why later. Okay, so you've got your pickles all processed and ready. The other things you need for this, you need coarse pickling salt, and you need, you don't want salt, and the reason I say coarse pickling salt is a lot of different salts are iodized, and that can affect the way the culture works, right? You want the bacteria to be happy, they're not happy in that environment, so you want coarse pickling salt. Look at the labels, make sure it's not iodized, okay? There's lots of good reasons for salt to be iodized, nothing wrong with that, but if you're pickling, you don't want it, okay? You want some grape leaves, or bay leaves, or oh, there's something else, oak, certain kinds of oak leaves from an oak tree that has round, round corners. Those help to keep the pickles crunchy. And you want some dill because for flavor, but that's basically all the spices you use. And you want garlic, right? So you got garlic, dill, grape leaves. That's all I put in. There's lots of other things you can do, but I find this makes a fantastic pickle. So that's what I use, and it works out great. And you need a big old jar. All right, this is a half-gallon pickling jar. All right, so you should, if you're being really careful, do a dry run. Put everything in first, make sure you got enough room for your pickles and your solution and so on, but I've done this enough times and I'm okay if I've got extra, I'll just make another batch. So I'm just going to make one jar here and I'll show you how I do it. Alright, so you got your garlic. This is about 3 good-sized cloves that are big, like the size of the end of my thumb, like almost 1-inch cloves, so it's about 3 cloves. And you can put them in there whole, but I find if you smash them and put them in, it gets more garlicky, and I like it really garlicky, so in they go. Then you want to put in all your dill. Really like a good handful is the amount you need. You just jam it right in there with the seed heads, okay? Those are supposed to add some sort of flavor. Don't be shy with your dill. You got, if you're like me, you got too much anyway in your garden. You got some crazy amount. That's all fine. So get those in there. Then you put these leaves in, and the leaves will hold down a lot of the bits and flecks of stuff that's in the seed heads. And make sure this is all this stuff's washed. You don't want to be putting any slugs in there or anything like that, right? You want this to be, a low protein solution. For those people that are concerned about botulism and stuff like that, that tends to happen in a protein environment. There's an article I'll refer you to. One of the university extensions in the United States wrote a very good article on the safety of lacto-fermentation. So don't take it from me, take it from, I wish I could remember the name of that university. Don't take it from me, take it from the university. All right, so you get everything in here, and now, and while this has all been going on, while I was cutting up the pickles and all that sort of stuff, I had my solution going. So this is boiling water, and 2 tablespoons of salt. In the next size, for those that know things about mason jars, this is the next size down, right? So this is like a 1 quart jar, I guess you'd call it. This is maybe 2 quarts or half a gallon. I'm not really an expert on imperial. For Europeans, this is 800 milliliters, and this one is 1,600 milliliters. And some Canadians do metric, some Canadians do imperial. I don't want to get onto it. So that's all dissolved in there, right? And it's reasonably, you don't want it too hot. You want to be able to hold it in your hands like this without, saying, whoo, it's too hot, right? So that's why I do it a bit ahead of time. As long as it's it can be hotter than lukewarm, but not boiling, but it shouldn't kill the bacteria that's in these pickles, right? So now you just start jamming them in there, and you sort of want to be strategic in how you do that. Mason Tops, before I get started, Mason Tops has this great masher thingy. Just going to sterilize that. I just washed and rinsed that and put it in some boiling water for a couple minutes. All right, so it's handy for getting in here without getting your fingers in there, right? Introducing any pathogens. Also, by smushing that stuff up, it helps to release the flavors a bit. don't worry about things mixing all in. It's going to be in this for quite a while. It's going to be on your counter for a week, and then it's going to be in your fridge or cold room or spare fridge or buried under the ground like I did it last year for quite some time. Because if you're going 4-foot by 10-foot bed of pickling cucumbers, you're going to get a lot of pickles. Okay, I can attest to that. I might have made 10 gallons of pickles last year. And you just you want to really get as many pickles in there as you can. And I'll admit, I'm not the greatest skilled at this. I'm sure there's someone's grandmother out there is the best in the world at this. Some old babushka or something like that. This is an old world skill. So I'm sure there's someone that's better at this than me. I'm not the greatest, that's for sure. Anyway, it's a question of just finding a little place to put everything. You don't want to smush anything, but you do want to do your best to get everything in there, right? As tight as you can. Then you work on your second tier. So I have enough here for 2 batches, I think. One of these, if you have a bowl this size, it's full. That's like a 14-inch wide or 15-inch wide bowl. It's for 2 batches in jars like this. I think I got a small one here. There's a little guy. All right, so I think that's about as far as I can go. All right, let me show you that. So you see here, it's about an inch below. I mean, it's right at the shoulders. You call this the shoulder, right? That's the neck, and this is the shoulder. So I've packed them in as tight as I can right to the shoulder. Okay, because you want the whole thing immersed. You don't want anything peeking up above the liquid, right? So, how do you keep these things from floating up? Mason Tops has these little glass things you can put on top, and they work great. But if you don't have that kit, I find this works really well. You take the ones that were a bit too big, and you cut one of them right down the middle. All right? And what you want to do is cut it so that it's slightly narrower than the mouth. Maybe you want half an inch beyond the mouth on either side, like that. And what you do is you sort of bend it in. I've got 3 pickles here, so you want to put this perpendicular to that. So you sort of bend it in and jam it over. This is sort of like a sacrificial pickle. Well, what I'm doing is I'm jamming it in there underneath the neck to hold everything down. I'm sure there's other people, I haven't seen anybody do this. I'm sure there's other people that have sort of invented this independently. I'm sure I'm not the first person. I've heard about people putting bread on top. That sounds disgusting to me, but I'm sure it works. But it makes more sense to me to put pickles on top and just shape them to the right shape. There. So now that's tight, right? So nothing's going to float up. Just give you a close look at that, like that, right? They're jammed in there. Easy enough to get out when you're all done. Now you just pour in your water, your salt solution. For a jar like this, 2 tablespoons of coarse pickling salt. If you've packed it really tight, this jar should have enough salt and water. Not bad. Got a little spoon here, just there's a little bit of dill poking out the top here. You really don't want anything, you don't want any floaters, okay, of any kind. You don't want any floaters in the top there if you can avoid it, because they tend to create sort of microenvironments. And just give it a little tap like this to get all the bubbles. You don't want any air down there, right? It's supposed to be anaerobic, so it shouldn't have any oxygen. want all the air at the top here. So just to bring this in close, everything is below the water level now, right? There's a good ½ an inch of water above everything, and it's going to stay like that. You can see on the camera I'm sweating a bit. It's just really hot and humid here today, so I apologize for my appearance. I'm just keeping it real and getting it done. All right, so now you've got these lid things that go with this. These are just, I've got them in some boiling water just so they're extra sterile. There's a little fleck of something there, a little piece of seed on the neck. Okay, so you just put this on top, and then you screw this on, snug it up, done. And all you do is just leave it on your counter at room temperature. The warmer it is, the more, efficiently it works. And you wrap it in a towel or put a paper. You want to keep the light off of it because those bacteria don't like light. And then hopefully after about 3 or 4 days, it should go from looking like this to looking like this, cloudy. You can see the difference, right? The one on the left started off the exact same way as the one on the right. Right? Another thing you can do is if you've been making pickles, I didn't do it this time because I was making this video for the first time pickler or canner or whatever. If you've got a batch on the go, let's say you've got it in your fridge and eating the pickles, you can take some of the solution out of the batch where you have the actual culture and add it to the other batch to kickstart things. That's what I did with this one. This one here, I have not done that, just to show you that you don't need to. When I started doing this in the beginning, I didn't have any sort of culture to start anything, but if you're doing it over and over again, it just speeds things up. And if you've got a batch and you like the flavor, then you want to get that party going on in your successive batches. So that's how you do it. That's how you make lacto-fermented pickles. After about 3 days, it should be cloudy, and after a week, you put it in your fridge. I would leave it in the fridge, at least 1 day. You want to eat them when they're cold. They just taste better when they're cold. If you're really desperate, you can start eating them, after a few hours of getting it cold. I would really, if you've got the time, wait another week, have them ferment on the counter, and then have them sort of settle out in the fridge for another week. It's not that you can't eat them, they just taste better if you give them a week in the fridge as well. I don't know why, that's what I've found. Perhaps it just allows that much more time for the garlic and the dill to permeate the pickle and improve the flavor. I don't really know exactly. So I hope you found that useful, and if you haven't tried this, give it a try. I mean, this video, it's a fairly long-winded, and it makes it look tedious, but when I'm not filming this, I can do this in about 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes and put it on the counter and wait for a week and then put it in the fridge. It's much easier than the traditional canning approach. We have to boil everything and sterilize everything and all that sort of stuff. Once you get sort of used to doing this, it's just something you do while you're doing other stuff, right? I'll tend to do a batch of pickles while I'm making supper, right? Just while everything else is going on. It's not hard. It takes about 5 minutes. All right, well, thanks for watching. I hope this was useful for you, and if it was, please like, share, subscribe. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.